the year 2019. The primary vision of the university ever since has been to shape legal education as an instrument to provide justice, social, economic, and political. Keeping in line with this agenda, the Internship and Placement Cell is organizing a series of guest lectures that will help broaden our horizon as students and as emerging leaders of the legal fraternity. Today's session with our guest speaker, Mr. Satish Padhi, will focus on career opportunities for law students and career planning, with a focus on internships at reputed law firms, organizations, and PPOs. The event will commence with an address by our keynote speaker, which will be followed by a question and answer session moderated by Mr. Tushar Tyagi. I now request Pranjali to take over and introduce Mr. Satish Padhi to the gathering.
Thank you, Kansha. We are delighted to take this opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker of the day, Mr. Satish Padhi. Sir is working as a principal associate in dispute resolution practice group at Khaitan and Corporation. Sir specializes in contractual and commercial law disputes with a focus on hospitality, construction and infrastructure, and oil and gas sector disputes. Sir is passionate about contract law and regularly writes on contemporary issues involving this area for prominent legal websites. Sir graduated as a gold medalist from the National Law University, Odisha in the year 2014, and since then, Sir has been working in the corporate sector. He has judged various moot courts and ADR competitions throughout a plethora of law schools in the past years and has delivered various lectures and talks. It is our university's delight to have Sir as a speaker for this guest lecture. I, on behalf of all the students of DBRANLU, cordially invite you, Sir.
Thank you for the introduction. So we start the session or?
Yes, sir. Kindly start the session.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Please start.
So how do we want to go about it?
Sir, actually, we want you to address first to our students, and then we will go with question and answer session.
Okay. So most of you are in which year?
So students of all the batches are present here. Fourth year and third year and first and second year. We don't have fifth year.
Very well. So the theme of the session is on career planning. And I think since all of you are at different stages of your law school, I must first of all congratulate you for having taken up law. And I hope all of you are enjoying your time at the law school, because law as a profession is going to be very interesting and challenging. And the real fun element of the profession is that there is a lot to learn, and it is a vast ocean. And therefore, as you grow up and spend more time in the law school and join the profession as well, you need to plan and figure out what you want to do. So the idea of this session is to help you in that planning process, so that you come out whatever plans and aspirations you have for your career, you are able to fulfill it and prepare in a structured way. At the same time, it's very important to enjoy your law school experience, because that it is going to be one of your most memorable times, and because after that, whatever you do, life is always going to get more busier. So it's important to enjoy and also follow a certain passion in law school. You should not only be focused on academics. Say somebody enjoys writing publications, enjoys research, then they should take that up and write articles, and somebody enjoys voting, then they should actively participate in moot courts. It's important to be involved, and because with every experience there is always something to learn, and and more group activities that you do, the learning, the peer learning is good, and there are always thoughts that are exchanged, which makes you a better professional and a lawyer. So broadly, I think all of you are aware of what kind of there is going to be a plethora of opportunities for all of you when you graduate. One, of course, is the traditional law firm route, where there are leading law firms in the country who observe and look for young, fresh graduates. The second is in-house opportunities in various leading corporates. So those of you who want to do take up the judiciary route, then all of you should start planning from now on and prepare accordingly. You can right after graduation give those exams. Then there is of course the academia. Then there is legal journalism as well. There are a lot of opportunities. It's important that all of you plan and figure out what will suit you best. The days initially in the profession are going to be tough, but as long as all of you are passionate and are able to figure out what you want to do, then I'm sure all of you will enjoy your time in the profession. I think that's the initial thing from me. Then let's get into the specifics.
Tushar,
One
I
is,
think you should.
yes, sir. Sir, one of the main questions which revolves around is that what really is corporate culture and how is corporate environment, and what is the workload and what is the pros and cons. So can you please tell us more about that, sir?
So see, at the end of the day, what the environment that in a law firm or in a corporate house that you'll face is a professional environment, right? A professional environment will come with its that, and a task will be assigned to you, and you'll be expected to deliver and deliver with a deadline in mind. So it's like you're given a project and you've given a certain specified timeline to fulfill it. But in a corporate environment, the timelines are going to be short. You're expected to know your research skills well, and a certain ability to look for the law is going to be presumed. So therefore, when you are in your law school, it's important that apart from your subject specific knowledge, what you should also focus on the art of reading judgments, the art of finding the law. That is on a certain propositions, how to find judgments well, and then the ability to distinguish judgments. Say you're arguing for a certain party and there are judgments against you, then how to distinguish them, and then how to apply the statute. So statutory interpretation becomes very important, because not everything can be taught in a law school, right? Say in the today, if some of you go and take up corporate law as a career, you'll have to engage in and learn Foreign Exchange Management Act, the FEMA as we call it. Now, FEMA is normally not taught in law school. Some of you who will do capital markets will have to learn the Securities Act and the rules thereunder. And again, that is not something which is specifically taught in law school. Though slowly, a number of law schools are inviting professionals and offering short credit courses, but not everything can be taught. What is important is you have the skill sets and you develop those, so that when you graduate out of law school, you're able to apply the first principles of law and handle the assignment that is given to you in a very professional manner. So what is expected is also some basic qualities, that is being sincere, being timely, and being prompt in your responses. That's nobody expects somebody who graduates out of law school to have a vast depth of knowledge. But what is expected is that you will be always proactive and be able to think on your own feet and bring that energy to the table.
Sir, coming to the corporate, we have various teams, like you are part of the dispute resolution, then there is IPR team, then there are different types of team, like we have the real estate sector. So we have like 5 years of law school, or there are some in 3-year law program. Currently, as of now, all of us, we are in the 5-year law program. So sir, how to, select a particular field which we are interested in? Like most of us will want a job in corporate firm, but we want to know our basic area of interest which we want to work in, like there are dispute team, for example there is dispute team. So how to select that particular area of interest to work in a corporate firm, how to find that particular area?
Yeah, it's a challenge, I must say. It's important that you nonetheless find it out, what will interest you more, right? And one of the ways of doing it is I suggest in the first 2 years to have an open mind, because I realize a number of first and second years are there. So in the first 2 years, to have an open mind, you will be taught some basic courses, so which will familiarize you with different first principles of law. After that, one should start planning. Before one starts pigeonholing and saying, look, I want to practice this area of law, that area of law, it's important to get a flavor of what that area of law offers you, right? So one is that, say somebody has a wants to pursue intellectual property laws, then apart from studying the law, then he or she must pursue some IP internships in some law firms and gets a flavor of what their work is, right? So that what we actually contemplate, the reality may be something else. So while we read the statute in an academic environment, we might enjoy doing it, but practically when we are faced to do it day in, day out, we may not like it. So therefore, the best way to do it is try and intern as much as possible in the third and fourth year in different areas. You shortlist by then 2-3 areas which could broadly suit you as a person and your skill sets, and then try and intern as much as possible in different areas to figure out where in those 1 or 2 month stints that you do, you enjoy going to the office, you enjoy working in that area. Once that is clear, then in the final year, you can slowly start streamlining yourself and planning to focus on a few areas which will hopefully, but the way to do it is always by always eliminating things, rather than from the beginning starting to say that, look, unless you're very clear. So somebody is very passionate about company law in the beginning, then he may say, look, I'm very clear in my second, third year to become a corporate transactional lawyer, and accordingly he will plan. But it is all right not to be very clear, right? Law school is meant to be a stage where you learn different things and figure out what will suit you. So if you pigeonhole yourself very soon, then it can be a problem as well, because suddenly if you go and work in that area and you don't like it, but you've not developed your skills in any other area during your law school time, so that could be a problem. So it's important that you at the beginning diversify as much as possible, try and pick up what and then slowly by working. Say you want to do internship is just one way. The other way is supposedly international law fascinates you. There is international law moot court. You can do that and see actually whether there is fascination in the real sense. Do I enjoy putting it and burning that midnight oil for 30 days in that subject or not? Similarly, there is IP moots. There is somebody is fascinated about maritime law. There is a maritime law moot court that happens. So there are opportunities, right? But it's important that all of you keep an eye on those opportunities and plan. Not every opportunity is going to come your way, but therefore it's also very important to have a plan A, plan B, and plan C in place.
Sir, as you have said that interning could be one way to explore. So I wanted to ask you, as many of from the audience are from the first year itself. So I wanted to ask you, to get an internship, you need to have a good CV. So as many are from the first year, I wanted to ask that how to build a CV from scratch. So what are the essentials and what should we refrain from doing in a CV, and what should be there in a CV?
Yeah, so fundamentally, in terms of see, there is no right or wrong way to go about it, but there are a few tips that I want you to keep in mind. Ensure that your CV is not too long, right? A number of times what we notice is the resume runs into 3-4 pages. Nobody has a time to read a long CV. Whatever you need, you need to communicate. It should be communicated at the most in 1 or 2 pages, right? And then there will be a number of CVs which will. I'm trying to tell you what you may not do, so that then you figure out what is to be done. Then you'll find a number of CVs where yeah, there will be 20 seminars I have attended. And that will be listed, right? Now there will be no connection. Now, supposedly somebody is interested in IPR, then he has attended 5 seminars in IP. Then he wants to highlight it in his CV. That makes sense. But there are 5 in IP, there are 5 in criminal, there's 5 in property law. Then there is no complete disjointed resume that comes out. So somebody who looks at it says is unable to figure out what you're actually interested to do. And then it's important, academics also is very important, particularly when one is not from the creamy law schools. It's important to try and be in the top 10, 20. What it does give an indication to a recruiter is that the person has been sincere in his law school. Because at the beginning, nobody expects a lot more than sincerity, right? And then again, the same applies to moot courts. So you'll find many doing 5-10 moot courts in a year. But what impresses is not the number of moot court competitions that you've done, but supposedly you've won a best speaker award, or your team has gone and made the semis or the finals. That shows excellence. What when somebody looks at a CV, they don't want to look for quantity. They want qualitatively, can I see some traits of excellence? Can I invest in a person? And where can a person grow if I invest in a talent, right? So there has to be some exhibit of excellence, whether it comes from academics, whether it comes from a focus area, whether it comes from your articles, or whether it comes from competitions. But that's what is important. In a nutshell, in a 1 or 2 pager, you must be able to convey to the recruiter that, look, there is certain attribute in me for which I deserve an interview. Because most of the internships these days are also through interviews in major law firms, right? So I hope that answers.
Yeah, sure, it surely does. Apart from that, after I have made up my CV, I think I have completed my CV. So if I sit in for the interview, for example, in a tier 1 law firm, so what is the required skill set and attitude should I develop so that I get my desired internship or a job at a tier 1 law firm?
See, the point is, what I find a number of times is that people have, given a CV, but they don't know the CV inside out, right? So supposedly you've written that you've done a research on the aspect of misrepresentation and fraud, right? So you should expect a question on that in the interview, because that's written in your CV. But if you don't answer that, that leaves a very bad impression. That's something which you've written, you're not sure about it. Similarly, you would have written in so-and-so internships, I have done this work, that work. But again, I find a number of people not being able to recollect what they have done. Say they're in the final years, and what they've done in the 3rd year internship, they're not able to recollect. It happens, but the point is, it just indicates that you've not spent enough time preparing, right? And indicates lack of diligence. So this is some of the, you must know your CV inside out. It must be, you should be able to recollect it completely and know what is written there very well. And then nobody expects you to know everything. So normally people will ask you, what is your area of interest, right? So supposedly you say patents is my area of interest. Then in patents also you must be able to then answer contemporary issues in that area of law, because whatever you say, you expect questions in that area, right? So therefore, if you say patents but you're not aware of what's happening in patents, then it again indicates that you're probably not focused on your area of law. So it's important to be a little street smart, think of what somebody will think about when he or she reads this resume, right?
Definitely, sir. So, sir, we would like you to discuss about the different areas of different opportunities which are emerging as a law graduate, for law graduates.
Yeah, so different opportunities, in terms of practice areas, I would say there is one, of course, the corporate practice area, which includes your agreement drafting, the transactional practice, which is the private equity, mergers and acquisitions, foreign exchange law practice. Then there is the disputes practice, which is adversarial in nature, which is related to the court and the judiciary. And then most of the contractual disputes these days are arbitrated. So within the disputes, specialized practices like arbitration, mediation has come to the fore. Then slowly, with the advent of National Green Tribunal, firms are also coming out with an environmental law practice. So that's one area. Then there is IPR, which includes patents, trademarks, and copyright. That's a practice area. Then those who are interested in telecom, there is and technology. There is a telecom, media, and telecommunications team in almost every law firm. Then there is an energy infrastructure and resources team, which basically deals with the work in that specific sectors. So that calls for certain sector specialism. Then there is your data privacy has also emerged as a new and emerging practice area. So all said and done, and in various companies, depending on the sectors that they're in, say Flipkart or Amazon, they expect you to know the e-commerce regulations well, right? So with every sector, there is a practice area opportunity that comes, and it is important, since all of you are young and hopefully very curious individuals, to always keep in mind what could be the future trend. So the future trend could be, say, electric vehicles, right? Now, what will be the regulatory framework around that? The future trend would be Bitcoins. Now, what will be the regulatory framework around cryptocurrencies? Because slowly, once businesses come, once a new sector comes, then there is a legal requirement that how do those businesses want to go about their business in a regulatory compliant manner, and that's where laws come into play.
Sir, as you have talked about the coming of privacy laws and you have talked about the e-commerce side, I think there is one area of law which is emerging really fast and gaining popularity, which is cyber law. So according to you, what are the career opportunities and scope in cyber law?
See, cyber law, you're right, it is emerging as a significant practice area, particularly when we see a number of cyber frauds that keeps on happening. So for cyber law, one has to be very well versed with the criminal law aspects and also the technology law aspects, right? So the IT Act one needs to be aware of, and of course the criminal law angle as well. And the compliance angle, right? The cyber policies that one needs to put in place. Now, most of the firms these days are coming out with an information technology as a practice area, wherein the cyber law will be a sub practice area. But for you to practice cyber law, your first principles of law in contracts, in information technology, criminal law must be good. The foundations there must be good. Only then you can do. See, the point is every time laws keep on changing and new laws and new practice areas will keep on emerging. But it's important for all of you not to neglect the foundational subjects, right? For example, if you want to do any sort of commercial work, you cannot do without the Contract Act, right? But number of times people ignore it. Then if you want to advise companies, you cannot do without the Companies Act, right? While people focus on super specialized areas, but the foundations are normally not focused on, which means that it requires a lot of the thinking process doesn't emerge that way. So it's important that you focus on the core subjects during a law school, and then anything new that comes up, it is easy to pick up because your first principles would be good, rather than the other way around where you're focused on some narrow area, but your core foundational principles are not clear. Then it's a very difficult thing to navigate through. I hope it is helpful.
Sir, can you throw some light upon the career opportunities in domestic as well as international arbitration, and how to start at it and how to succeed at it also?
Yeah. So arbitration, as I said, these days contractual disputes, mostly every sophisticated commercial parties these days put arbitration as the preferred mode of dispute resolution. One of the reasons being that our courts are burdened. So when it goes to arbitration, you'll find people who are dedicated, they give their time and things can move on at a good speed. Now, the opportunities are used because arbitrations happen across sectors, right? Because one is the general arbitration that you may find out of a service agreement or out of a landlord-tenant dispute. But then there are big ticket arbitrations in the construction and infrastructure sector, which could be any mega arbitrations going on within the big construction players. Similarly, arbitrations happen in the oil and gas sector. Arbitrations happen in the maritime sector. And then slowly institutions have emerged, like the SEAC, like the ICC, and most of the parties have designated those institutions as through whom they want to do the arbitration. So what that leads to is there is a rule mechanism that is in place. It brings more professionalism to the table, and arbitration functions in a particular way. Then there is a concept of seat in the arbitration. So the jurisdiction of an arbitration is determined by the seat, and accordingly, a number of times when there are parties choose Singapore as a seat, and therefore those arbitrations will take place in Singapore. So therefore, arbitration as an area is going to be a core area of practice going forward, whether it is domestic or international. And but to be able to do that well, again, you have to be very well versed with the Arbitration Conciliation Act. You have to know a little bit of comparative laws surrounding the act in UK and other jurisdictions, and of course know the institutional rules, like the rules of the SEAC, the LCIA, and the ICC. Then when you join join something and take up a role of ADR, you'll be able to do it well. And also, it's important that if you figure out that arbitration is what you want to do, you keep reading some blogs surrounding it, figure out areas that within the arbitration space which has derived interest of practitioners, and write something about it, which will generally help you to demonstrate some interest that you have in this practice.
Sir, can you please dwell more into the areas of practice of arbitration?
Sorry?
Sir, please can you dwell in more into the areas of practice of arbitration? What are the different areas?
So the different areas is, see, arbitration is a wide gamut. Within it, one can specialize in multiple sectors. So the one of them is the construction sector, construction and infrastructure sector. So therefore, there the disputes will arise with big ticket construction players like the L&T. Then there is one more sector that I said is the oil and gas sector. Then the third is the maritime sector. Then the fourth is your normal big ticket, what is called the shareholder agreement disputes or the share purchase agreement disputes, right? So, so what is essential is, prior to arbitration also there is something called a mediation. So these days, even parties, the endeavor is to not even take it to arbitration. So they provide for a full-fledged mediation clause, which is, and sometimes they make it mandatory as well. So mediation requires a different skill set compared to arbitration. There are mediation specialists that are emerging slowly. And what essentially one needs to think about while mediating is, you have to create a win-win situation for both parties, right? Instead of focusing on what the real rights and liabilities the parties are under an arrangement, we need to figure out what are the objectives. what are the interest areas that you must protect and achieve for your client. The idea is to be you always want to be remembered as somebody who is able to make a deal rather than who has not been able to get parties together and close a deal, right? So your negotiation skills are become very important. So it's very important that in terms of personality also, you slowly develop a balanced personality, because when you start your career, there will be days when which will be stressful, like in any other profession, right? Say for example, the India-Pakistan match, right? The players are very tense compared to a normal match, but you've got to handle the pressure well. Those are the occasions where one performs, one is remembered for long. So, so similarly, there will be days when there will be a lot of pressure, but if you buckle, or if you or if you are not able to handle it well, then it doesn't leave a great impression.
Sir, many of us, they are in this conundrum of if they want to go for judiciary or they want a secure future with a corporate job. So I think, can you please tell us about how to balance between the preparation for any other preparation and also preparing for a corporate job?
See, it's important. As I said, for the first 2 years, it's important to have a very broad framework in mind, without saying, look, I want to do this, that, do that. But if somebody is very clear about judiciary, then I think they should utilize the time in law school while studying the subject papers to prepare for the judiciary. Right, like all of you are taught, all of you know what are the subjects that are going to come in a judiciary exam. For example, you will get questions from the CRPC, you will get questions from the CPC, you will get questions from the Constitution, and so therefore, when you're reading it, and if you are very clear that when I graduate out of law school, I will give the judiciary exam, then I think it's important that you spend those 5 years preparing for it well, because it doesn't require it doesn't require it requires planning, but it is no rocket science, right? So therefore, it requires a lot of root learning, particularly in the prelims, where you're required to remember the section numbers and all, which may be slightly different from the case law examination pattern that you may be facing in your law school. But you would have access to your question papers. So while reading the subjects, you should use that time and prepare it well. And when somebody is very clear about it, then the summer vacations that one gets, one should also utilize that in preparing for judiciary. Because if you want to become a judge, try and become as soon as possible. That will only enhance your chances of graduating and slowly going on through and rising through the ranks and becoming a high court judge. Right? There's no point spending a few years preparing for the judiciary and clearing it in third, fourth year, which with a little bit of planning, a little bit of methodical approach, you could have done it in the first year right after law school, right? So I would suggest if you're very clear about judiciary, focus on it. But if you're not clear, then as part of the subject area, you also think about it, prepare for it, but at the same time, be diligent with whatever else you're doing, and then see how things pan out.
Yeah, sir. Many of us also decide after graduating from the law school to pursue LLM. So, sir, I wanted to ask if we should study in India or from abroad. Is there any difference in doing pursuing LLM from abroad or from India? And does doing LLM helps in getting a corporate job, or does it helps in corporate?
See, LLM, one should not look at it as from a career point of view per se, I would say, because in terms of career point of view, an LLM is necessary for those of you who want to pursue academics, right? For those of you who want to teach, and our country does need good law professors. That's how only we produce good students, right? So it's a great career as well. Then an LLM is a necessity. Without it, you cannot pursue it because of the regulations as it stands today. But otherwise, a number of people also do the LLM for the experience it offers, right? Because particularly if you get a scholarship abroad, then it gives you an opportunity to experience and see the way things are taught and approached in a different jurisdiction. But I would always say that when you want to do an LLM, do it for the right reasons. Do it for the right reasons. Being say, well, you want to join an academia, then you must do an LLM. There is no two ways about it. But if you're not going to join an academia, or you want to plan to do an academia later on, then you might as well do your LLM right away, and then see where your career evolves. But if you're a little confused and you're then you've got choices, right? You may per se, law firms really do not per se look for an LLM as a requirement. They bright young LLB graduates are equally considered on par with LLM. But of course, it is an added qualification, and it indicates, particularly if you specialize in an area, say if you specialize in financial services law, then it indicates you've demonstrated some in-depth knowledge in that area. So to that extent, it is helpful. But I would always say that just don't do it for the sake of doing it, seeing my certain peers are doing it. But find the right reasons to do it, and the reasons could vary from people to people. For you, it could be that I want to do to join academics. For somebody else, it could be to experience. Say somebody has applied to a jurisdiction because of great academic grades and has got a scholarship. So then for that person, it could be the experience, the academic rigor, and the experience, because no experience in life ever fails. So whatever the experience, it may not give you results immediately, but it'll always help you in terms of your overall personality enhancement, right? And number of you, most of you, in fact, will be connected with law after you graduate and do it for a long 30, 35 years. So 1 year of LLM or anything doesn't really make much of a difference. You should look at it as a journey. So therefore, it again comes down to your very fundamental things that you're thinking about. That what if I'm not able to be clear about what I want to do? It is all right to be a little confused in the beginning and figure out things. And remember that no journey. You should not imitate anyone, right? Your journey is going to be unique, and it is going to be true to who you are. So therefore, there is no right or wrong way, but at the same time, it's always helpful to find the right reasons to do something, so that you don't regret not planning things a little bit better.
Sir, what would you suggest additionally to a student that would enrich his experience with the corporate world apart from internships, competitions, and seminars?
See, I think it's important to be involved as much as possible in different activities in law school, right? What it does is it helps you to interact as much as possible with different people. Because when you do corporates, whatever you do, you'll have to do some extent of problem solving. Sorry, there was an internet lag. So you have to do some form of problem solving, and when you do that problem solving, the more you, and as a peer group, what I've seen is number of people in law school, what they tend to do is they tend to welcome similar thoughts, which I think is a problem to self learning and improvement. Say you must have say you want to discuss the aspect of say whether competition law disputes should be arbitrable or not in India. Okay, so it's important to have 2-3 students who are debating and discussing it, because in that process you'll exchange thoughts and you'll get different views. Because what will happen in a corporate environment is silos do not exist and will not flourish in a corporate environment. So you've got to have a mentality of collaboration. and to be able to see things from a different perspective. So that therefore some group projects and being able to debate out things is in your law school, and having an open mind are, I think, also equally important traits apart from other things. These are the things which will develop a good EQ within all of you to be a broader individuals.
I think that is the thing to note, sir. That silos don't exist in the corporate world. So, but the next thing is that how to get a PPO at a tier 1 law firm, and what skills and past experience are necessary for that.
See, it starts from it starts from getting an internship in the first place, right? So I think therefore it's very important that you have a structure. I don't know how it functions in your place, but it's important to have a structured internship committee, where the committee, normally what happens is ad hoc applications won't find much favor. So the committee should be organized, and committee prioritizes internships. Say for 4th years, they should shortlist 20-30 law firms, and the committee reaches out, and 10 corporates. And for somebody in the first year, they should shortlist 10 NGOs and some district court lawyers, and then they reach out. So once there is a structured mechanism that forms at the committee level, normally opportunities come, right? Because the PPO process starts with first getting an opportunity to intern, getting a foot in the door to be able to sell yourself and tell people that you are a good sincere law student, right? So number of times that opportunity doesn't come in the first place. So therefore once that internship you've got through, it's important to be sincere. What I mean by sincerity is, supposedly somebody gives you a certain task at hand. It could be a simple research on a particular proposition of law. If you do not understand, ask that, look, I just want to get a background context to it. So number of times people may be busy and they will tell you, kindly research on this. They may not be able to explain you the background. But without the background, your research may not be that effective. So it's important for you to reach out saying, can I get the context behind it? Then supposedly research has been given on an area of law which you're not familiar. Then there is no hesitation in asking what should I look for? Where should I look for? Right? Because at the end of the day, if you've not asked those questions and have gone ahead and done the work, and you've come back after 2 days and the work is not beneficial, then that individual who's given you work will have to reinvent the wheel, right? Which will leave a rather more negative impression on you than being upfront about things, right? So you should be upfront, proactive, and sincere, and try and deliver things on time to the extent possible. And where you're not able to do so, inform the person that it's taking a little longer than expected.
Sir, I think there is some network issue on the side of Tushar. Kritika, are you ready with some questions?
So I believe that's all that we have as of now.
Okay, so I think we should open the chat box for the students if they want to ask any other question.
Yes, sir.
With Devansh, kindly turn on the chats. Guys, chat box is now functional. You can ask your questions.
Sir, so we have two questions. One is an elaboration for a career in legal journalism ahead. So what is your view on this?
Yeah. So see, legal journalism is again a fascinating career. Say you've got bar and bench. They look for persons connected with the law. Then you've got various people who want people to go to the court and see the proceedings and translate certain things there. And then even among the media houses, there's slowly a specialized legal journalism team that is coming up. When you do that, if you intend to join uh, intend to join a media house, then there is no reason for you to limit yourself to only legal journalism, right? Because what law school ingrains in you is the ability to think, write, and read and speak well, right? This is the four things that we do as a lawyer, and it takes ages for us to master it. But fundamentally, what is very important, if you're clear that you want to pursue this kind of a career, that you spend your law school in honing your writing and speaking skills. Um, uh, that is very important, right? Because as a legal journalism or as a journalist, I would say if you want to take up journalism as a career, law gives you great foundation. You need not necessarily have a journalism degree, right? Because what you need to be a good journalist is being able to report accurately, effectively, and communicate and convey your thoughts in a nuanced manner. And that skill will only come when you write a lot in your law school, when you speak a lot in your law school, because supposedly you want to join print journalism, your writing skills will be required, right? But if you want to join a media house, then your speaking skills will be required, and cumulatively along with your writing skills. It's important to test it out during your law school. But that's an interesting area, because it gives you prime time attention, and whatever you do has a way of moving people around. So it's important to be responsible as well. Say when you go to a court and do some reporting, it's important to report accurately, because the reason why I say all of you should be responsible is because you've got a law degree with you. So when you go to a court and there is a simple remark made by a judge, if you report the remark only without that context, then that is not responsible reporting. So it's important to be ethical as well while you do that. Okay.
Sorry
Yes,
for the
sir.
inconvenience, everyone. Sir, we have received some questions. I would like to ask you from them, if I may ask the question, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, sir, the first question is, I think many of us have this: is interning only in the internship month is enough? For example, in our university, we have 2 months of internship break in the whole year. So we have 2 months for internship. So is it enough? And to what extent does the internship matter when you are sitting for a job interview?
See, the point is internships. As I said, you want to look at internships as a mode and mechanism of being able to figure out what you want to do, right? Particularly in the first 4 years, and in your final year, you should look at it as trying to fag end of fourth year and final year. As once you figured out what you want to do, to internships is a way to get you there. Now, fundamentally, if the university offers 2 months, then you should utilize those 2 months and plan to get where you want to go. Say supposedly you want to join a law firm in their IP practice, then you should have for 2 months 2 law firms to go to, right? And see, particularly if you're in a final year and you're clear about you want to intern, you want to get a job. So, and while interning also, do not always chase glory, right? Because number of firms have they only do campus placements, whereas a number of firms only do recruitment through internships. That is, those who intern with them, they consider and evaluate them and give a PPO. So there you have a greater chances of getting a job, because you're interning, they value internships more and take interns more seriously. And then this second leg of the question, I forgot. What was
Sir, to what extent does the internships matter when you are sitting for a job interview?
Yes, so it matters to the extent that, say, supposedly you are saying I'm interested in corporate laws. If you have interned in corporate practice area of 2-3 law firms, then when you're giving that job interview, it helps to say that you know a little bit about the area. You've seen what professionals do in that area, and accordingly you may be a little more you're a little more aware of that area compared to a normal person who's not done all of those, right? So in that sense, it helps to demonstrate an interest in a particular area.
So regarding the dispute resolution, I wanted to ask what type of internships we should do, so to get placed in the dispute resolution team of a corporate firm.
See, I think in the initial years, we should look at advocate chambers, good advocate chambers who are busy, and where you will also be kept busy. In the beginning, I think in the first year, you could look at a district court along with an NGO, because you've got 2 months slot. And then in this, because without doing the district court, what I find is that a number of people chase the fancy appellate jurisdiction in the first year itself. So they will go to the High Court internship in the first year. But you'll be normally going around sitting in a courtroom without understanding much. So it's important that you do the district court first, then you go to the second year in High Court and a mix of a district court. Then if possible, try and do a tribunal. Say supposedly company law fascinates some of you, then there is a National Company Law Tribunal to intern, right? Then the NCLAT is there, so you can intern in those places as well. Either by interning with lawyers who predominantly practice in that area. And that again, your internship committee should be able to help you, or else you can yourself do a little bit of research and figure out who those individuals will be. Because what happens if you intern in a law firm before your 3rd year, normally nobody will give you much work, because the presumption will be that you are not familiar with the laws on which they will the practice happens, right? So you'll find most of the work going to a 3rd year, 4th year student. So before 2nd year, before 3rd year, I would suggest you focus on joining advocate chambers and getting exposure there. And in the 3rd and 4th year, you do internships in dispute practice areas of law firms and companies. Then that will make it up for a good CV, along with a few articles and a few good quotes in an arbitration or in any other dispute area. That will make up for a good CV, and hopefully should get you a foot in the door. A foot in the door meaning an interview with in a few places.
Sir, with regards to ADR, what type of things one can do apart from competition to gain practical experiences?
I think your technical skills, right? A number of times we ignore our technical skills by participating in competitions. What I mean by technical skills is knowing the PAIR Act well, right? A number of times we do not know the statute, but we know judgments. So when somebody will ask you, say, grounds for challenge of a domestic award, you may refer saying that this judgment says these are the grounds, but then there is a provision which lays down the ground. So the discussion must revolve from the provision rather than from a judgment, right? So therefore, it's important to be technically very sound. And if you've got time, your competitions and all are going to follow. But if you're not technically sound, then you'll be found out. So therefore, in your law school, you must read the law well and figure out some areas within that sphere of the law where you can develop some depth.
So, sir, jobs and internships prospect in a home state which do not have any metro city and has not a developed law firm culture. So, what are the job prospects there?
Yeah, so Tushar, if you would have asked this question to me a few years back, I would not have given you a very optimistic answer. But COVID has changed things really. So and slowly with time, what we will see, particularly in companies, people will be more open to sort of a virtual or a hybrid model of work. So therefore, the IT sector has seen it, where basically most of the big companies allow you to work from anywhere, right? The legal sector won't see it completely, but there are certain roles where I think slowly, with a little bit of time, people will be open to allow work from anywhere, particularly the advisory side of things, where you don't need to go to courts, where you don't need to engage with others. You can do an agreement, and you can do it from anywhere, right? But I think the first few years, wherever you join, once you've got the technical expertise and you figured out how things are done, then to avail this kind of route may make much more sense, because you've got the exposure and now you can do it from anywhere, right? But initially, if you are at your hometown and not had that exposure, then that learning may not happen that quickly.
Yes, sir. So, sir, we have received some questions in the chat box. One of them is has been asked by Ujjwal Mittal. Sir, kindly throw a light on company secretary as a career option as it deals with law major.
Yeah. So the company secretary and law are an excellent combination. But the point is, you've got to choose at some stage. It is an add-on, right? Company, I've seen even during my law school days, a number of my batchmates would pursue company secretary. But the point is, when you start your career, you have to choose whether you want to be a lawyer or you want to be a company secretary, right? Company secretary is required by almost every company, so there is a career opportunity there. But if you're serious in the law, then company secretary is an add-on. It will only help to demonstrate to a recruiter that, look, in terms of Companies Act, here is a guy who is a little more thorough compared to his peers, right? To that extent, it will help. But if you want to take up law as a career, then per se company secretary degree won't take you anywhere, unless you want to do it and have an option that, look, I want to do a BScs. And in the good old days, what used to happen is number of companies would not have a lawyer per se in their ranks. And the in-house departments would have company secretaries who would normally run it and engage with external service providers like advocates and law firms. But nowadays, most of the companies are recruiting lawyers, and they always say that a company secretary degree is helpful because the compliances angle also somebody can deal with. So see, the point is, the recruiter always wants more skills. So if you, but per se, that skill set alone won't. But it is definitely an add-on which will be beneficial if you want to do practice in the corporate commercial area. It will strengthen your technical skills.
Sir, what are the policy making and researching aspects in the corporate internships and related opportunities?
So see, policy as a career has emerged very well. So if you see in the US, there were, in particular in Washington DC, a number of law firms had emerged who would have specialized practice called the policy practice, right? In India, it is slowly picking up. You've got law firms like the PLR chambers, which only do policy work. You've got the Amar and Mangaldas, who would have a policy law team with them. Now, what policy means is you've got to see the regulation from a particular lens and see where the gaps are in that regulation, or you become an expert in a particular legislation, right? So in all of this, it involves a higher level of thinking, and that higher level of thinking will only come when your first principles of law are clear, right? Say you got to identify the gaps in a policy if you want to actually be involved in the legislative policy making process. The other is the new law has come in. I want to have say the insolvency bankruptcy code gets notified today, and tomorrow a client comes to you and says, I want to know what is the meaning and import of this provision. Now there again, how will you be able to help, because you know commentary, no interpretation of it. You'll only be able to help if you're aware of what the committee has thought, meaning the committee which has brought out this code, what was their view on this provision, right? And the basis of their view, which could be comparative. So it requires that much in-depth legal thinking and a lot of investment into challenging your brain, which which is exciting, but you've got to be able to develop yourself to that extent.
Sir, one more question is references or connection is how much important to procure an internship at PPO at tier 1 law firms, and being from a non-legal background and newly established NLU, how to build connections?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. So you see, the references are always helpful, but at times it is also overrated, right? Because references helps you to get a foot in the door. Now, supposedly you know somebody who's it may help you to get an interview, but if you do not crack that interview, that internship interview, you may not land that internship, right? So reference may help you to a certain extent. That is, it may get you a foot in the door, but what you do with that opportunity is up to you, right? So the second is the second aspect is how do you build references, or how do you build connections? Today what I find is and there's nothing to mind about, say, a number of people reach out on LinkedIn, and the first message that I receive is, kindly help me with getting an internship, right? And I have no idea of what the person concerned is, what is his background, what is he doing. So that's one way of doing it, but that doesn't necessarily appeal to people, right? What you should do is you should establish, say, people will come to you to judge moot courts. Mostly they will be professionals, so you should argue well for them. It leaves an impression. If you find out this is a particular area of law, and list down this is the 30-40 professionals who are not too senior, because if they're too senior, they will be difficult to approach, but who are in the middle rung in the profession, who are approachable, and then try and connect with them and seek guidance from them, and then show them their work. That's how you develop connections in a true sense, right? Rather than in the lobbying sense, because the lobbying sense may not keep that connection alive for a long time, right? So, and as a new law school, I was a graduate of the first batch of National Law University, Odisha. So I've seen all these aspects that you're pointing out. And in fact, one of your faculty, I don't know whether he's there. There is Navneet, who's also from our batch. The idea is it's important to recognize that there will be challenges, right? And hence be a little more organized compared to what an established law school will be. So you must your internship committee must be accelerated very quickly. They must follow a certain method and figure out plan A, plan B, plan C. Right, and then slowly things will happen. Overnight things won't change, but you've got to start developing those connections in an organized way, not at an individual level. At an individual level, it is always a challenge, but at an institutional level, it is easy to make.
Sir, I want to ask you, when did you decide to take up this area of practice of law of dispute resolution? That when did you made up your mind that I want to practice in this particular area?
Yeah, so my career has been very interesting because I was not a disputes lawyer in the beginning. I was a corporate commercial lawyer, but I did it for a few years. I didn't like it, and then after a few years, I shifted to disputes. Now, the 2 years in having done corporate commercial law, and having drafted a few agreements, those skill sets have been very handy for me when I deal with the other side of the table. That is how the agreements are to be interpreted by a court, right? So, therefore, what I'm trying to tell you is one of the things that all of you are very concerned about is how do I figure out what is my area of interest, right? And all of you want to figure it out very quickly, which I understand the anxiety, but it's all right not to be able to figure out. It's all right to be confused, because it's a professional journey, and that journey you're going to do for 30-35 years. So it's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and you've got to take it one step at a time. You do something, you may not like it, and then you rather eliminate through doing something and not liking it, rather than fixing yourself to one area and then later on having certain regrets in life, right?
Yes, sir. Sir, from some questions from the chat box we have received from Vinayak Paliwal, that can we go for
Can we take
judicial?
just a minute break?
Yes, sir, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Meanwhile, participants can post their questions in the chat box. If they have any questions, please.
Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, one of the questions from the chat, Vinayak Paliwal has asked, can we go for judicial internships from first year onwards if you want to go for judiciary?
Yes, so judicial internships per se means interning with a judge, right? Now, interning with a district court judge, you may do it, but I would strongly suggest that per se you do an internship in the district court in the first year through an advocate, and then the second year do try and do it by being an assistant to by an intern in a judge's chamber. But fundamentally, what you're looking for when you'll become a judge, right? When you become a judge, is you have the responsibility to be able to you're going to be a very important part of the justice delivery system, and you have a responsibility to apply the law to the facts and decide one way or the other, and that could be life changing for someone, right? So therefore what you're looking for is again that your skills are developing, and those skills means you know which law to apply, you know which facts are important, you know when equitable principles are to be applied, and then I'm sure all of you would have studied jurisprudence, particularly those in the fourth years. So then what is Ronald Dworkin talks about something called a hard cases, where there is no statute, there is no judgment which can be directly applied. Then what you do is you have to apply certain principles, so customs which are there in the society, and then decide. So those things are training is very important. So therefore you paper on interpretation of statutes, you paper on I think one of the papers which is taught in little haphazard manner in most law schools is the is on the aspect of precedents, right? Where how to find a ratio of a case. So how to read judgments. Those are the aspects which I think law schools can teach in a better way, or they can call some experts to discuss, because those are the things that all of you will be doing, whatever you do, right?
Sir, as you mentioned earlier that you received some messages on LinkedIn about getting them and securing them internships. So I wanted to ask, what is the right way? What is the trick of cold emailing, as we say that?
See, I think fundamentally, as I said, it's always important to do it in an organized way, right? So try and do it through the institution. If institutions doesn't happen, then try and go to connections whom you have met somewhere, right? Whom you've met either through your say you've been an organizer of a moot court, so you'd meet a lot of professionals, right? Then you participated in a moot court, you would have met some professionals. You've gone and attended a seminar, you would have met certain professionals. So those are the individuals, when you reach out, they will have some connect with you, rather than reaching out to someone just randomly. Then it's a little difficult for that person to even forward that resume of yours to the HR. In that scenario, what is best to be done is you write directly to the HR, right? You write directly, and then you follow it up with, see, while the world may not seem that rosy, but if you plan and work, there is definitely a place for meritocracy in the profession and in terms of opportunities. But the point is, you've got to be at it. There will be failures, and failures are always and those failures are going to be many. So if I'm telling you from my experience, we had a committee in the fourth year. So some of the internships have come through that. Otherwise, we had to apply and then call up and out of 40 applications, only 2 will respond. But that's a process, and all of us have to go through that process, and you've got to be prepared to do that hard yards. But one of the things that I realized in the process is that you should not get yourself fixated that I will only intern in a top tier law firm, right? So therefore, what happens normally, people start saying I will only intern in 5-6 law firms, and in the process they don't apply to others. It is important to not to be too choosy while interning. Try and see that you are productively utilized in those 2 months, and then the journey may start at an XY place, but it is not where you start at matters much. It's where you keep going that matters, right? So it's important to see the larger perspective of things, which unfortunately, say I didn't have it during my law school, because but nowadays with COVID, with this kind of technology available, you got a benefit of a professional talking to you and saying, look, there's nothing to be really panicky about things, right? It's okay to not get through certain places, to fail, because 5 years down the line, what grades did you get will not be relevant. It will be relevant when you graduate. So it's important to see the right perspectives.
So, sir, what is the right time to apply for an internship? To email the organization or the advocate? What is the right time? For example, I want to apply for an internship in a firm. So, what is the right time to send the email?
See, different organizations have different policies. What you should do is, before you apply, you should look at the websites of various law firms. Now, for example, let's take the name of Mrs. Desai Associates. They have a there is a page. We have a page as well, right? So there is a process highlighted. So normally, as a thumb rule, you should always apply 3 months in advance. But some places expect you to apply 6 months in advance as well. Now, when you apply 3 months in advance, you may not get a reward, or 6 months. You've got to constantly follow up by reaching the HR. There is a line, call up the reception and say, I want to speak with HR. This is in connection with my internship application, right? Then send some reminder emails. But also do not the follow-ups should be follow-ups. It should not become obsessive, right? So there is a thin line boundary between that, and always keep that in mind. Be always courteous, professional. The internship is not a matter of right. So supposedly there is no slots available, somebody else fits in the bill, it's okay to be rejected. There is nothing wrong in it, right? So but at the same time, reach out, right? You never know, when you reach out, then many people will help you and will guide you.
Thank you for enlightening us, sir. I think Gauri will take over now.
Thank you, Tushar. Thank you all for being such a lovely audience. I, Gauri Shirawat, on behalf of the Internship and Placement Cell, would like to take this opportunity to thank our guest speaker, Mr. Satish Padhi, sir, for taking our time from his busy schedule and giving his insights. Sir, you truly made this day knowledgeable for us. I would also like to thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Ma'am, Dr. Archana Mishra, for providing us with an opportunity to conduct this webinar. The IPC faculty convener, Dr. Renu Sharma, and Dr. Navneet Krishna, for their constant support and guidance in this endeavor. I would also like to thank my team members for their support and assistance. Thank you all for making this webinar a success.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You may leave, everyone.